Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I'm Carol, and in today's video I'm going to talk about my path to becoming a mobile notary or loan signing agent. The term was first mentioned to me, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years ago. I was working as a realtor, and one of my coworkers had a friend that was doing this type of work, and back then I wasn't into YouTube, so I asked my friend. I said, "Well, how do they get into this kind of work?" I said, "Because it sounds like something I might be interested in." And she said, "I don't know." And I said, "Well, if you ever find out, let me know." And she said, "Okay." And fast forward 10 years later, I'm on YouTube now and looking for, just looking at different things. One thing I had never searched for is mobile notary or loan signing agent, but it just happened to pop up on my screen one day, and because YouTube is kind of like, hey, I don't know who needs to hear this, but here you go. So I started reading up on it or listening to some of the videos on this type of work, and I said, okay, this is what she was talking about all those years ago. um, and at the time, I still had my real estate license, but I wasn't really doing a whole lot with it. I was actually temping for an agency that paid people's uh, utility bills. So I decided that I was going to get certified in loan signing. So I just kind of looked into the different courses, and the one I chose was Mark Will's loan signing system. And this is not a paid endorsement, but Mark Will's course had good ratings, and they had payment plans. So that was really attractive to me. He had three courses: the basics, the professional, and the six-figure course. So since I was thinking, well, this was something I was just going to do part time, I opted to take the professional course. Um, and I think the payment, I would make payments over a 4 month period, I believe it was, and the class was at your own pace. So I think I took 5 or 6 weeks before I actually finished it. Um, and I wasn't in a big hurry because, like I said, I was working, and I had to get equipment for to do the job. And at the time, I guess a lot of people were trying to get into this line of work because the laser printer that I needed was a dual tray laser printer, and they were on back order. The price had, I think, doubled from where it was a year before. So I wasn't in a big rush. I'd buy equipment as I could. Whenever I could get whatever I needed, I'd start purchasing a piece at a time. One day, my son's dad came over, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm signing up with signing services. I took this certification course to be a loan signing agent." He said, "Oh, okay. When do you start?" And I said, "Well, I can't start yet because I still have some equipment I have to get." And he said, "What do you need?" And I said, "I need a dual tray laser printer." And he said, "Oh, okay." Well, later on that evening, my doorbell rings, and there's my ex with a laser printer. It wasn't a dual tray, but there is a, a place on one of the internet sites where you can it will split your letter and your legal size documents. So it was great. I was able to get started. He not only brought me the laser printer. He also brought me a case of paper and a backup cartridge, for whenever that one ran out, which was very nice, I thought. So anyway, I was ready to get started, and the first I finally did get a accept a job. Well, what they do is they would send out mass text, and it was kind of like the first one that that responded usually got the job. So I finally got a job, which was really scary within itself because you're feeling like, oh, I don't want to mess up, and if I mess up anything, they'll never hire me again, and which is not true. Not good to mess up though, but uh, you can recover from an error. Like I said, it's not a good thing, but like I said, it's not that they won't ever hire you again. But I got my first job and did fine. I asked a lot of questions before I went because it's my first time. I didn't know everything, so they have a number where you can call and ask questions before you go to the signing, which I think they would prefer that you do that than just go over there and guess and make the wrong decision. So it turned out fine. I didn't get a whole lot of work my first year, but I had we were on hiatus when I took the job from my temp job, so we were scheduled to go back like in early December. And the weekend before I was supposed to start again, I'd had a car accident, and this was like the first time ever the accident was my fault. Uh, and I got out and I apologized to the man. His bumper maybe had a scratch on it, but my front end was all torn up to the point where my car was drivable, but the officer on duty said I wouldn't put it on the highway because this whole thing might tear off, and you got another problem. So I called my job and I said, well, I won't be able to come back just yet. I had an accident. And they said, well, whenever you get your car fixed, just come on back. We got a place for you. So I notified my insurance agency, and they let me know that I had been paying for liability insurance this whole time, which I didn't know at that time that that you could have liability on a financed vehicle. So live and learn. So I went out to get estimates, and I got an estimate anywhere between $3,400 to $3,700, which I didn't really have to do that. So one of my friends said, "Hey, take it over to my brother. He knows a little bit about cars. Maybe he can help." So I drove over to my friend's brother's house, and he looked at it. He came out with a power drill and some screws, and kind of screwed the bumper back on. I mean the front end pieces. But um, he said, hey, there's a guy here on my side of town that he has a small body shop, and he might be able to get you a better rate. And I said, okay. So I went over um, to Gabe's, and and he said he looked at it and he said, $800. And I said, what? I said people have given me $3,437. He said $800. He said, but you have to go and get the parts for it. And I said, well, how do I do that? So he told me what to get and where to go. And I called the place up, and to see that they had everything before I went out there. And they did have everything. I go out there and they say, okay, does this look like what you need? And I'm just like, heck if I know. But I think one part wasn't the right part. But anyway, it took actually a few weeks for him to finish my vehicle because he's just one man there, and he had several vehicles before me, but uh, he ended up charging me, just over $700, and I was like thrilled. But by this time, I didn't really want to go back to my job, and I was going to try to make this loan signing thing work. So as January, I don't think I got anything in January, but in February, um, I got several jobs. I mean, it was like my biggest month to date, because, absolutely, because other people paid attention to the weather, but I wasn't watching a whole lot of TV. And I don't know if it was a snowstorm or ice, but I had three jobs right there in a snowstorm. And I had I wanted to try to make it work because back some years ago I worked in radio sales, and I was talking to one of the record company executives and or record well record company representatives, and I asked her, I said, how'd you get that type of job? And she said that because she was living in Dallas at the time, and she said, well, she'd gotten an interview, and when the day of her interview arrived, it snowed in Dallas, and she said she went to her interview, and the manager that interviewed her told her that she said, I had employees that didn't even show up today because of the snow. So that was in the back of my mind, and I'm thinking, if I risk my life out here to make sure all this happened, that I would get more jobs, and I did get quite a few jobs in February, but I was scared to drive because I drive a small Toyota, and my friend Karen, that day I needed a witness, um, and because you don't normally need a witness in the state of Oklahoma to do this work, but they had property in Georgia, so I had to have a witness. And my friend Karen said, I'll drive, because she had a big truck. So she shows up to my house in her big truck, and she's got sand and salt and water and blankets and a shovel, just everything you could think of that you might need in the middle of a snowstorm. But we set out, and man, I saw so many cars in ditches along the way. And then finally, this job was in the country, and we were at the top of this hill, and there's like vehicles and ditches, and there's the FedEx truck over there in a ditch. And I said, oh, this is probably the time that I would say, turn around, Carol. But she's like, she wasn't paying attention to me. She was just focused on driving, and we made it down that hill because I was scared that, I said this truck was like getting speed. You couldn't hit your brakes, but we made it to that appointment. We get there, and they got fresh baked bread and homemade jam, and and I looked to the lady and I said, wow, you did all this today? And she said, nah, my husband did it. And I was like, wow. But I did make it to all my appointments that day. And like I said, February was one of my biggest months, my first year. The second year was a little better, and this is my third year, and it's been, the busiest summer I have had. I am still working through sign-in services. I have not gone out to solicit direct business, which, if you get direct business through title companies directly, you will get paid, more money. When you work through sign-in services, you're going to split the money with them, or they'll give you your negotiated rate, and if there's money left over, they'll keep that, which generally I think most of the time there is, not always, but most of the time. But that has been my experience. I really like the work I do. I don't think it's not as busy as it was when I got into it. As far as other notaries in my state, and but like I said, I'm still able to survive doing the work I love, and being an older female. I didn't want to work as hard. When I was working that temp job, there were days when I would leave, it was dark, and I would get home when it was dark, and it was just kind of like, there's got to be more to life than this. And I didn't know how I was gonna do it, but as they say, God can make a way out of no way. So we figured it out. Um, that is my story. If you enjoyed the content, please subscribe. Or if you have a story about being a mobile notary or loan signing agent, please let me know in the comments your experience. I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to hit the like button, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.